Welcome back to Books and Budgets. I'm Ruth, and no matter what I do, it seems that I cannot get a midweek check-in filmed to save my life. So I'm here to do the end of June, to recap the second half, the second paycheck of the month, and to show you how I close out my month. And let's just get started. So we started with, this is the budget that I created. This is the plan. And I will tell you, there are a few things that came up, a few things that you have to roll with. And hopefully this will show you the flexibility of a budget or budgeting system. Remember that it's personal. You don't have to ask, is this the right way to do it? Ask yourself, is this the way that I'll remember to do it? Does this feel right to me? And will I remember to do this consistently? Because that's the biggest issue that I've found is I do things one way one month and another way another month, and it doesn't help me as much when I do that. But when I go back and check how I did it before and I stay consistent, I'm like, okay, I can follow this from month to month. Or even if it's things that don't come up every month, if they're things that come up occasionally, and we're going to run into some of those in this video. I am going to attempt to zoom you in and stay in frame. I've tried to lay out my desk area here with some signals to tell me where in frame is. So give me just one moment and I will zoom in. All right, and I'm back. And I do believe this should be in frame so that you can see it. We're going to start with my school paycheck. Actually, we're going to start with the carried forward. I'll try to keep a $50 rollover. Some people call it a rollover. I call it a checking buffer. That's what I put right here. I account for it as income, and then I account for it as outflow so that it's just always there. But I had an issue in the first part of the month where I had missed recording a gas fill up, or not a fill up. It was just a time when I stopped and got gas for $25. And that took that away from this. And it took me a while to find the mistake, but when I did, it made me realize that my rollover would only be $25 this time. What I carry forward would only be $25. And then what I account for and hold in will be $50 on the back end. So we'll get back to that $50 level. That means $25 is going to have to come out of this. Usually this is just basically invisible. I start with 50, I end with 50. It's a zero-sum kind of thing. But when I start with 25 and I end with 50, the 25 that I'm adding is going to have to come out of my paycheck, which is fine. Also, there was another surprise. I didn't even think about this or when I would get this. Notice I budgeted for $1,600, but I got paid $1,859.50. Usually my paycheck, and lately it's been very, very consistent, usually my paycheck is $1,651.27. So this is already $200 higher. It took me a minute to remember what that was. I checked. There was a $300 stipend, and the $200 is what's left over after they take all the taxes and everything out of it. The stipend was, at the end of the year, they offered to pay us for hours that we spent in professional development last summer off contract over and above what we needed. And they said they'd pay us up to 12 hours. I was like, well, I'm not going to leave money sitting on the table. So I put in for it, didn't even think about it, probably put in for it in April or March, and I got paid this on June 15th. So, you can forgive me for having forgotten that it was even there. But it was a $300 stipend. It works out to being like $204 or something after taxes. I'm going to budget it as $200. And I'm going to want to put that in savings and be intentional with it. I'll show you how I do that when we get to sinking funds here in a little while. Speaking of sinking funds, I am spending money this month from my sinking funds. So I count that as income in a way similar to, I know Miko at the Budget Mom does this. In fact, I think that's where I learned it. She counts it as inflow. This was from my car sinking fund. I brought forward, I didn't budget for it, but I took out $145 because this is the month that I have to pay my personal property tax and renew the tags on my car and my son's car. And I renew the tags on both cars and things because I am still paying his auto insurance, and I get a better rate by being a co-owner of his car. So in my mind, it's his car. It will always be his car. I have no claim on his car other than it helps me to pay lower bills. So I'm on his title. Anyway, so this equals a higher amount than it usually does, $2,029.50. Okay, moving this up a little bit, getting to our regular bills. I transfer $150 automatically. This is an automatic transfer setup, and I do need to think about making that higher to cover the one that I do at the end of the month. Just would make my life easier if it's one transfer or two, doesn't matter, but if I don't have to do one of them manually. This one comes out automatically on the day that I get paid. Union dues come out also on the day I get paid for $31.25. Transferred $35 to my son for subscriptions that we share. YouTube TV for $79.92. I count this as a utility expense simply because I'm old, or I'm old school at least. And I always counted our cable TV as a utility expense. I mean, since the 80s, that's what I considered it. You know, antennas work, well, they work better in some areas. In my area, they don't work as well. So antennas work, but since it seems like the late 70s, everybody's had cable TV. And when you live in a part of the country, I live in the middle of the country, when you live in a part of the country that has severe weather, anytime really, but spring and fall especially, you want to make sure that you have good access to weather forecasts and weather coverage when it gets bad. So, you know, this is considered a utility by me, and that probably is more explanation than that needed. This is not a utility. Netflix I count as entertainment. My life insurance, I paid $55.79. Yes. Have my hair done about once every 5 weeks. Cut and colored costs $114. That includes the tip. Lawn care, I did not pay any. I budgeted to pay some, but he came really late. I mean, like on the 14th, I think. So, and then I didn't see him again by the end of the month. So I'm just going to use that money and pay for it next month. The electric bill starting to sneak up. The air conditioning is starting to be evident in this, but that's okay. Like I said, between these two, I like to budget $250. And I know that in the summer, this one is going to be the big one. In the summer gas, we're about at our normal, just chilling for the summer rate, which is about, this is what it costs to keep it turned on, $13.04. So, you know, this is less than $15. I can budget this up to $235. And if it goes higher, that's what I made my utility sinking fund for. But I budget $250 for these, plus $50 for this, so $300 between the three of them. This one this month is $49.64, and obviously that does not make $300. This is $160, $210 thereabouts, and that aligns with what I put into my utility sinking fund. I will get to that in a bit. Let me scoot this up a little bit so that I don't lose you in the frame. T-Mobile's $125 as usual. and transfer to savings, 120. This is for the rest of my insurance costs. This is the one that I do manually, partly because that has increased since I set it up as an automatic, and partly because I like kind of controlling how much is in my account until the end of the month. So, added up, all of this is $933.07. It is $140 less than this because this was $90 less. My utilities, and I didn't have lawn care, so that's about $120. There's another 20 or so saved in other places, but this was less than expected. So when subtracted, this comes to $1,096.43. And I'm going to move that down. Let me scoot this up a little bit. Move that down to right here, $1,096.43. Groceries. This pay period, I did okay on groceries. Not terrible. Went $13.50 over on groceries. That wasn't too bad. And I didn't correspondingly go way over on dining out. Went a little bit over, $10. $11 essentially. Car and fuel, I did go over on this. I spent a little bit more than expected. I got $25 worth of gas and then forgot that I got that. And I guess I was driving more, so I needed more. And I thought, well, I haven't gotten anything yet. And I stopped somewhere, and it was more than it was closer to my house. And I said, I'm just going to get $10 to get me home. And when I got home and checked, I realized, well, maybe I could wait a few days. And I did. So $20 for entertainment. That's the one that I take out in cash and put in my cash envelope. Miscellaneous, I budgeted $40 for the last half of the month because this is book club time, and that allows me to go out and eat. And I believe in this one, I even purchased a Kindle version of the book for it was $2.99. I really try to avoid spending money on books. $2.99 I can see. Spending $20 a month on books, I'm hesitant to do. So I try and get them from the library. I try to borrow them from friends. I try to check them out digitally or electronically if I can. So this time I couldn't find any of those avenues, but then I realized that the Kindle version was $2.99. I said, I got you. Okay. This is the county treasurer's office where I pay my personal property taxes. This is part of what came out of these sinking funds, this $145. So I paid $88.50 on an assessment of 2 vehicles that I have the title of. Neither one of them is new. The newest one is 15 years old. So, and then I paid the state government for the actual tags, $58. And I have been saving that since last June. Last June, I had also been saving for almost a full year. And last year was the first year when sinking funds that I had just not even really been thinking about, that were small enough that seemed negligible, and I was just putting them aside. When I get to the point where I'm going to have an over $100 expense, and it's no problem, that's really an eye-opener. The biggest problem I have with sinking funds is adjusting to how they change my savings account. I take them out and use them for what I set them aside for, and there's a little part of my heart that goes, oh, my savings account went down. But I wasn't scrambling. I wasn't panicking. I planned for this, and it wasn't my emergency fund that went down. That savings is there and protected, and that was the whole point. That was the whole thing that got me started budgeting, is watching what at the time was my only savings, but now I think of as my emergency fund, dwindle and go down and down and down without being replenished. Now that is protected, and I don't have to dip into that except for real emergencies. The last real emergency was my little puppy dog's basically his last illness. Last December, the vet bills for him when we lost him. That was the last time that I had to dip into my emergency fund. Everything else is pretty well coming from either cash flow or sinking funds. And that is a whole different level of peace of mind. It just really is. So, I'll step off of that soapbox. But because I had this added expense, this was more than I had originally set on my budget. But I don't even worry about this. Since this is coming out of the added income, I don't even worry that these numbers don't match. And remember, there was even more income with my school paycheck. So this is going to end up being, I budgeted for $215. I have $568.96 left. Okay, and here is where things get a little bit interesting. Let me see how I can do this. Okay, so we're moving here. We're going to put that amount, $568.96. I'll scoot this down a little bit. I just really want to make sure I don't mess up the frame this time. I've done that too much. Okay, I told you that I got paid $300. After taxes, it ended up being about $204. I want to be intentional with that $200. I'll keep the $4 as I'll put it in cash flow and treat myself, whatever. Treat myself with $4. Whatever. So my priority now is not my emergency fund because I reached $5,000 on that. So I'm kind of adding a little bit. I plan to add a little bit, but I'm kind of in a holding pattern on that. My priority is home maintenance because I need work done on my house. So I was trying to take about 50% out of whatever I kind of have left. So let's do, of that 200, let's do 100 here. Then I have these 6 sinking funds, but medical and emergency fund have kind of reached the levels that I was thinking of. I still want to keep adding them, and sometimes I consider them equal with these. But the truth is, these 4 are more of a priority. And since 100 divides by 4 very well, much better than by 6, I'm going to add 25 to each of these. And this is the creative part. To me, this is the fun part. This is where you start making plans and start figuring out what you want to do. As I call it, this over here, this side over here of the page, this is the business side, this is the fun side. Okay, so I know that I want to add this, but I want to come up with the rest of it separately. So let's see. I may actually do this on like paper here. I've got 568. Oh, I'll put this up here. 568.96. I am taking $200 right off of it, which will leave me with $368.96. Okay. Things that I have to pay. I always have my $50 checking buffer. And like I said, this is raising this because I started with 25 this time. So there's an extra 25 going in here. I'm saving $15 towards my tags and taxes for next year and $25 towards subscriptions. Those are musts. So that is $90 right there. I'm going to subtract 90. But I'm not finished. Another must that I have is all the way down here, my utility sinking fund. If you remember, I said the $300 that I normally budget only came to about, my expenses this month only came to about $210. So I'm going to put $90 in here. And that is protected in a way. So there's another $90 that I have already basically accounted for. So then we have the 96 that comes down. We have the 8 that comes down. And from 36, we're taking out 18. Left with 188.96. This is what I can put into sinking funds. I always take the 96 and usually whatever this amount is right here, I always take it and put it into my change rollover, or my change roundup is what I call it, or party with my pennies or whatever. So 896, but since I have more this time, I'm actually going to make it 18. That's going to leave me with $170. Okay, let's see how we want to allot that. It's more than half, but I like the symmetry of putting $100 into my home maintenance. Added to this 100, that's going to be $200. Then let's see. Then that leaves 70. Didn't it leave 70? I thought it left 70. I'm going to have to do this math because somehow I'm not getting what I thought I was going to get. All right, I may get my calculator out. I was thinking I could do, oh, yes, it does. It does. I'm with it. These 4, since I showed that these are priority, I'm going to give them the 15 that I designated. So, added to the 25, that's 40 each. And when I do the 4 times the 15 like that, I can do these 5. That means 10. That's the $70 that's left. So these at least got what they were budgeted, and they got a little bump from this over here. The thing that got the biggest bump was home maintenance, and since that is my priority, that works well for me. And it just really helps me to know that I can put that much in this month. I won't be able to do that every month, but what I'm thinking is when I can get things started with having work done on my house, hopefully I will be able to work a monthly payment into my regular budget. I'm hoping to have at least some in this home maintenance in case that's ever a squeeze. Whatever the monthly payment is, if it's ever a squeeze, that I can pick up the extra, kind of like my utility sinking fund is there to pick up the extra on my utilities when they are high. I'm hoping that it will be there, say, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm just making up a number. But say I work out a monthly payment that's $250, and one month I have other expenses, and it's really a squeeze to pay more than $175. I could pull $75 out of here. I'm trying to build it up with enough money that that's what I can do with it for several months, even if I need to. So maybe that's naive. That's what I'm going to try to do. I'm just really nervous about trying to get work done on my house. I just really am. Oh, I didn't subtract 460 from 568, and you get 108.96, which is what I'm moving down. 108.96, and this one I said I was going to make 18.96, and looky there, it all comes out and subtracts down to 0. So that is my plan. Real quickly, I'm going to go through the other things that I do at the end of the month. One, I take all of these figures right here and I calculate what my savings balances are going to be, because I don't have a savings account that has buckets currently. I am looking at high yield savings accounts, but currently this is just in a regular savings account at my bank. This is my emergency fund. Like I said, it reached $5,000, so it's got a little bit more. I put the 5 in. My home, that's home maintenance. It's anything. Put in 200. It's up to 530. My insurance fluctuates because I have it pulled from this account. So I put in 270. It took out 173. That leaves me with 123. Cars and tags, I pulled out the 145 and put in 55 because I put maintenance and tags and taxes in the same one. I may split those out at some point, but it leaves me with 277. So maybe 15 of that is for next year's tags, but the rest of it, the 260 at least, is what I have for maintenance or repairs if I need them. Pets, I'm still adding to my pet fund because I would like to have a future pet. So I'm putting in some for that. I'm up to $175. Entertainment, this will get spent next month because both of my annual memberships come due next month. So I will be removing some from that. Medical, I wanted to get it to $250. This is outside of my HSA. So $250 felt comfortable for now. If I feel differently later, I'll change that. We'll see how the year goes with an HSA. If I spend everything in my HSA and I'm still scrambling for money this year, then I will probably up what I withhold from my HSA and I'll increase this as well. Gifts, put in a little bit, building towards the next big gift giving. My mom's got a birthday in the fall, and then it's Christmas. That and my savings challenges are usually what I use to fund Christmas. Now, I fund Christmas for more like $500 or $600 for gifts. I don't spend thousands. So if that looks small, it's because I don't usually go that big. Utility sinking fund is up to $515 before we get to the heat of summer. That makes me feel great. Vacation, $295. I'm glad we're in 3 digits now, but that doesn't go very far. So I'm keeping an eye on that. And then this is fun money. I also earned interest this month, $3.59. That's interest for the quarter. This is why I need a high yield savings account. And I add it to my emergency fund. So let's see. You don't need to see my tracker and all the things that I've done. We will hit real briefly, where did my money go? This is for the month of June. Here's my W-2 income. This is it says savings used. It basically means my sinking funds used, and this was my total for the month. Okay, I'm just going to go through real quickly. You've seen this before, and a lot of these don't change. This is what I budgeted and what I spent for the month. It's green if I spent less than I budgeted. It's red if I spent more. Obviously on food, can't quite seem to get that. Okay, utilities I spent less. Insurance I spent less. Car and fuel, because of the tags and taxes, spent more. Personal care less. Entertainment I spent more. That was when we went to see The Lord of the Rings. And that came out of, a lot of it came out of my cash envelopes. So, but there was something else. There must have been, because I can't imagine. Okay, but basically those 3 things were the things where I spent more. Everything else on here is the same, or I spent less, except for savings. And I put it in green if I spend more on savings, because that's all paying me. So that I consider that a positive. This tells the percentages of what each thing costs. My home expense is 22.9%. I'm glad that stays below 25%. My utilities stay well below. This is trying to live within my means. And I know this is hard in a lot of places in the United States right now because housing costs are outrageous. I am very, very lucky, and I know that. This is the comparison of last month's expenses with this month's expenses. I spent more on utilities this month because last month we used our air conditioning less. I spent more on entertainment because we went out to the movies. And I spent more on miscellaneous because I allowed myself to put the meal that I had with my book club on miscellaneous. But everything else, I did better than last month. So that is the quick breakdown of where did my money go. All right, got you zoomed back out again, and I keep thinking there was something else to talk about, but there's not. This is the last thing I had planned for this video. So with that done, let me say thank you for sticking with me till the very end. I really appreciate it. You know, I really do feel sometimes like having a YouTube channel and posting YouTube videos is a little like sending an electronic message in a bottle out into the great ocean that is the internet. And it really is heartwarming when some of you let me know that you received my little message. So if you made it all the way to the end of this video, consider please giving me a thumbs up or putting an emoji down in the comments. Something that reflects how your day's going. Hopefully, I'm going to see nothing but happy faces and hearts. But, I mean, even if your day's going badly, English teacher, got to get that right. Even if your day is not going the way you expected, not up to your hopes, give me an emoji. Let me kind of share the journey with you and commiserate with you. You have my sympathy if it's not going well. And I will be planning the next budget, which will be the next video, which will be my budget for July, where I'll talk about how I, as a teacher, budget for the summer months, which I am helped by my district to do. My district helps out a lot. We can talk about that. I know there are some teachers, I believe one of them specifically, shout out to Budget with Miss P, some teachers who have to set aside money for their summer all year long and then pay themselves out of their savings. Our district operates differently, and I feel like I'm pretty lucky in that. So I'll explain that in the next video for the first paycheck of June. Nope, first paycheck of July. Wow. That means August is coming, and I don't want to. Anyway, stay tuned. I will be talking to you soon, and have a great day, my friends.